If you know this or not, there is a new style of Americana cuisine, that new American, which is what you'll see dressed up a lot of the times as just like fusion food and this, that, and the other thing. But also part of that movement is the idea of taking something incredibly familiar. In this case, we're going to take French onion soup, which if you've ever eaten out ever, you have seen. You've seen it come in a crock with 4 or 5 pieces of cheese melted over the top. Well, okay, it's usually 2. Insider secret, it's usually 2 to 3 pieces if you're lucky. And they just broil the crap out of it until it gets nice and golden brown, and it's awesome, and it's indulgent. And here in New England, you should eat it at least 2 to 3 times a year, just, to stay warm, right? That's what we're doing, we're staying warm. We're not being fat, we're staying warm. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna strip this down. We're going to give you the base that you could then add your stock to make your French onion soup. But instead of taking it to that place, we're actually just gonna add way too much cheese. We're gonna stuff it into a homemade savory tart shell. We're gonna get it with a little bit of probably dried spices, and we're gonna hit it with some fresh herbs because we have them kicking around. And then we're just gonna make the dough, rest the dough, roll the dough. We're gonna show you how to make a pie crust. And then...
No, and then!
And then...
No, and then!
You've heard T make this joke dozens of times at this point. But probably not. I don't know how many videos we've released. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how many videos we've released. I'm sorry. Would this be a Kenny video without onions? Blah, blah, blah. Well, okay. In this case, we're gonna do kind of a spin on French onion soup. So there's gonna be a ton of onions. I'm gonna show you the way that I see people do this at home. And then I'm gonna show you the way that you can maximize efficiency. You just cut back on time, because when you have all these onions to do, you shouldn't be sitting here doing, you shouldn't go through the process of I'm gonna take the top off this guy. This is gonna be waste. I'm gonna pop him in the waste bin. You shouldn't throw him down, give him the cut, and then take your time with it, right? And then you go, okay, I've got the peel off now, and whatever. This is definitely getting the job done. Just gonna go through it again. Then what they like to do from here is you'll see them. We're gonna go for whether you want to call it slices or julienne, but we're gonna go for slices of onion here instead of dicing. So we're just gonna give it a couple of broad slices here. And then I'm gonna come down here. This guy in the back with the root, he's scrapped. I check the undercarriage, a little bit of the root, get that out of there. They'll take this, then this guy goes into the good bin, not the waste bin, the good bin. Okay. They'll finish up the other onion. All right. That wasn't almost tragic.
This is why home cooks are so dangerous.
Yeah. And then there, so you got onions, everything's disconnected, into the good bin. All right, now you gotta clean the board up, and then you'd start the next onion. That is just wasting too much time. I all things considered, and not to toot my own horn, I still slice that onion pretty fast.
I'm gonna put a timer on there.
Yeah, well no, but okay, compared to your average.
That's what you're about to do right now.
Yeah, so, okay. Oh, are you? All right.
Yeah.
Hold on. Tom.
You better make this count.
Tom just made this a competition. All right. So now what I'm going to do is if I was in the professional kitchen, what I would do is this. I would take the tops off of all the onions, right? You said make it count. You didn't give me a good knife. You said make it count. This fucking guy.
You took this knife yourself.
I took
giving you
the other.
I'm giving you the carving knife.
All right. So all the tops go. Waste bin. Clean up just a little bit. We're gonna go through and we're gonna slice them all in half now. Basically what you're doing is you're going through and you're doing the whole thing in bulk now. I'm just trying to make sure that everything's being seen by the camera too. We're gonna peel that top layer off. Again, that's that weird waxy, unlubed condom textured piece of onion. You just don't want to eat that. It's gross. That first layer of onion's gross. You're never gonna be able to cook that texture out of it. It's one of those things you just have to cut your losses with.
You are being done.
I understand.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. That first layer up. Oh, that was a satisfying
That
one.
was a really good one, actually.
Right? It doesn't always work out like that. I see, like this guy. He wasn't doing what I wanted him to. Now the reason this is more effective is because if you...
Sorry.
No, there's a lot of... Tommy's having a hard time with all the onion fumes. I'm gonna be honest, my eyes are watering quite a bit here too. But you gotta do what you gotta do. If you do these one at a time and then you just start chopping on top of this, you're gonna get all of this garbage inside of your onion. You really don't want that. All right. And then because I gotta go, trim it down.
Show him the finger.
The finger?
Yeah.
So I always have one man downrange. And it's my middle finger he's leading, and he's actually, maybe I can try to adjust it. He's always laying flat so that the knife lays flat against my hand and will cut straight down. Now, in order to make that next cut, because that's gonna slide off, I just take the knife, press it right up against it again. You're basically just, as it happens, I use the knife to push my finger back just a little bit while keeping it straight, and then I just slice down. And you wanna make sure you connect on both ends with the knife. So down here, you wanna make sure this is laying flat against the board, and back here towards the hilt of the knife, you wanna make sure that's also laying flat against the board. Otherwise, you're not completing the cut. Sometimes you're left with pieces like this, and that's fine. What I would do is just the same thing as if it was just a new onion. I would just go through and I just give it more slices, because you can get a lot more yield out of these onions than you would expect. Like your waste at the end of the day towards the root should probably look a little bit like this. You can probably go a little bit closer. I'm not gonna be hurting for onions at the end of this recipe. I'm not gonna stress it. And then just rinse and repeat, right? Another question we get asked an absolute crap ton is, or even even when younger guys start in the kitchen, a lot of their main focuses is knife skills. How do I get better at knife skills? How do I get faster? How do I do blah, blah, blah? The answer is usually you have to be pressed for time. That's how I got good at them. I was bad at my job when I first started cooking, so I was always behind. So when you're always behind, you have to find ways to make up time. For me, that was getting faster with my knife. But it also comes with, it comes with repetition, knowing how to do it in the first place, right? So if you're new to this, take your time. Go 1, you can press it down, slide it out of the way, and then readjust and do it again. You can set your finger and then go for the slice again, and you can just rinse and repeat, right? So you just come in, you'd rest your finger, you'd make your cut, right? And then so it's gonna block it off, and then you're just gonna go straight in. And now over time, you'll be able to take these and you'll be able to speed it up. So instead of doing one every few seconds, you're doing maybe in 10 seconds you can get through the whole onion. Maybe in 12 seconds you're getting through the whole onion. Or maybe you're savage. You're just naturally gifted or built different, and you can do the whole thing in like 3 seconds. I don't know how fast I can do one. I don't know if that's something you would want to waste time editing.
Like a bigger.
So we would just go. Never been. Whether you ever want to air footage like this or not, I guess it's just a question for you. What was the first time you were ever like, oh shit, I wasn't ready for service?
So I was working at the Speckled Head pub.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did, I was supposed to start making lamb burgers. And the first thing I did, I was to go cut up some onions to put in the lamb burgers, and I cut up my finger instead. So I spent the rest of
Like the prep period.
trying to find a bandage or something that would suffice as a bandage.
Yeah.
And then by the time my first order came in, I was still just covered in blood. And so was everything else.
Were you a one and doneer there?
That was my second and last shift.
Fantastic. I remember everybody remembers the first time they cut themselves on the line. And everybody does it. I had a teacher one time who told me he'd never done it. I was working at an Italian restaurant in Waterbury, Connecticut, which, I mean, there's only 4 million of them, so nobody would ever be able to track it down. And we were running at the time. It was like a staple item. It was a chopped salad, and we didn't just chop the romaine ahead of time because that will die even in refrigeration. Like, give it like an hour. It's gonna be. So we would chop it fresh. So I had fish tubs of romaine underneath the station, and the order came in, and there was 2 of them. And then as I'm doing the first one, like 2 more come in, and it was just a fluke thing where like usually they get like the steak salad or the chicken salads and things like that. And so like this one was just straight like you get like it was like a whack wedge salad, just on chopped romaine. So there was like blue cheese dressing, tomatoes, bacon, more crumbled blue cheese over the top, and then sometimes we would do an egg and candied walnuts like that. And so I was talking to the guy who's working the fryer for me, because now my board's starting to line up, and I'm just going, and I've got this thing, and I'm not looking, and I like invert the knife, and I whack inwards, and I take off half of my middle fingernail, and me and Panchito are looking at each other, and his eyes are big. He's like, uh-oh. And I'm looking at him going like, oh boy. And there was like a 3-second pause. I looked down at the board, I looked at him, he looked at the board, then looked back at me, and I went, I'll be right back. that was it. I run into the back, I find a Band-Aid, I get over to the corner, I'm like trying to clean it out, and he grabs my hand. He hangs it over the garbage can, and he goes, here, take this. I have no idea what's going on. He's got me by my wrist, and he has we would make dressings to order. So we had like one of those bartending server things full of vinegar in it. But it wasn't like white distilled or anything. It was red wine vinegar. So he just has red wine vinegar basically in a squeeze bottle, and he's blasted over my finger, which I'm missing half a nail on, and I can't even breathe. It hits and I can't even breathe. It hurts so bad. That's not my first story of being in the weeds. I remember that is one of the ones that made me go, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Yeah, right? So now we've got our bowl of onions ready to go, and it seems like a lot. It's gonna cook down a ton. And to this now we have to add mushrooms. We used white onion for this. You can use red onion, you can use Spanish onion, or Vidalia, or whatever you want to call it. You can use Cipollini if you are a millionaire. I wouldn't use scallion because when they cook down and wilt, you just lose everything on them. But you just something that will caramelize and that isn't onion will work just fine in here. The same thing goes for mushrooms. For mushrooms, I've done this with shiitake, I've done it with oyster, I've done it with maitakes, I've also done it with cremini, I've done it with, portobellos, whatever you have. Around these parts in Connecticut, we can get cremini and button like there's no tomorrow, so we're gonna start using some of those. All right, same thing with these. Like before, we're gonna prep these out in bulk, so we're just gonna, instead of doing one at a time and then slicing, we're just gonna pop the stems out of these guys and get them going. We've done this in another video prior to this, but you just take your thumb and you just push. And when you push, the bottom pops out, and then we follow it the other way through, and it just falls right out. So for the mushrooms, we're gonna cut them the same way we did the onions, with the same technique anyways, where you're just gonna take your middle finger and you're gonna slice, and you're just gonna go through it. You go at whatever speed you're comfortable going. Once you get to this point, if you don't like standing it upright and working that close into your fingertips, you can just lay that bad boy down and then just do the same thing over again. Just give it a couple of slices. It's all gonna cook down so much, you don't have to worry about if they're the same shape or size. Everything is gonna be a little bit varied, but it's gonna cook for so long it doesn't matter. Get the steam burn on my forearm for the shot. So first things first, we're gonna go in with the flour, right? So to that, we're gonna go 1 cup. So for this guy, we're just gonna take a grater side. We're We're gonna go into the flour. Does it see this?
Yep.
And we're just gonna take our frozen butter and we're just gonna grate it. And we're just gonna go nuts because we wanna work fast.
Here's the dangerous part. Talk about that.
Yeah, so towards the end, you're gonna get yourself once or twice on this probably, but we just power through. We want to go nice and slow so we don't really mess ourselves up on our razor sharp grater. That would be foolish. Never have I ever done that. And now that we have our a little over 1 cup of flour, we're gonna call it 1 1/4 because they were 2 heaping half cups. So we'll mark somewhere on the screen. I don't know where Tommy's or T's gonna. Yeah, I'm gonna call you Tommy. I don't know where Tom's gonna put it when he's doing his editing, but
Top left.
Top left. So up here,
Yeah.
you'll see like 1 1/4, probably a question mark. Cups of flour, and then 1 grated cup or half cup of 1 stick. I'll call it 1 stick. I'm gonna bring it back, and then we're gonna have the half stick of grated butter. To this, before I start mixing, I'm gonna go in with just a little bit. We're gonna do a shaking of garlic powder, a little bit of black pepper, just because we want those flavors in there, and nothing too crazy. We're just gonna mix. I'll go both hands. Who am I kidding? And this is just like from the biscuit video, where we diced it up instead. In a professional setting, like in an actual professional kitchen, they have these machines called Robocous, which are just really overpriced mayonnaise machines. And they have these grater attachments that if I was in a professional kitchen, I would just strap that thing on and I would just feed stick after stick after stick of frozen butter into it until I had all of this grated, or all the grated butter, to which I would use to make my buttermilk biscuits at home. I don't always feel like washing the grater, but it makes this so much easier, and it makes the dough so much more uniform at the same time, which is actually really nice. That's what we're looking for here. The only thing that I don't have ready to go right now is a couple of tablespoons of cold water, so that we can get it going.
You don't want to wash your hands and start over?
So you might have heard that behind me. T was adding ice cubes to the glass to maintain that level of ice cold status to the water. It's not essential, but it gives you more time to kind of putz around with the recipe, so you don't have to try to work faster. And as you can see, because of how cold the butter is, we still get those little pea-sized pieces of butter, which if you look it up, like in the classical textbook sense of it, this is what they're looking for, those little pea-sized pieces of butter. It's probably gonna take maybe 4 all day, so we'll start with 1. I'll give you a well. I'm just gonna start moving it around, getting everything nice and situated. I'll take another one. Give me 2 right now. Let's see how that goes. 1. You can do a little bit more because that one was a little shy.
The ice cube jumped in.
Yeah, there we go. Call 4.5 tablespoons right now. This is something that you kind of do have to eyeball. There's no real way around that. But what we're looking for is a nice scraggly dough that you can pinch, and when you do it, you want it to like just hold itself together. Probably not more water. I think I just need to work more flour into it to make it a little scragglier.
Okay. It was actually holding together pretty well then?
Oh yeah.
Oh, weird.
Oh yeah, see, so like if I mean not there because I use my fingertips, so it's gonna start breaking apart there, but you can press it together and it'll hold its shape. You know what I mean? But if you dig your fingertips into it, you're gonna mess it up.
Just dusted your belly.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. When you squeezed it, it went
Poof. The dough smells awesome.
Yeah. We didn't even put time in it.
Oh shit.
It's right next to you.
All right. Well, we're gonna put fresh thyme into the jam mix.
Yeah.
do you think? Maybe a little bit more water?
Yeah, I need a little bit more to hold it together.
Here, ready? I'm gonna do this then. And then, because somebody just brought it up to me that we were supposed to put it in there, I'm gonna strip some of these thyme leaves and get thyme leaves, the fresh thyme leaves that we had left over from our sausage gravy video in there. We're just trying to get some pretty awesome flavor in there. You know what though? All that ice cold water is gonna help preserve the color on these too.
Yeah.
Which is actually really nice. This guy's gonna be rolled out later. That's probably perfect. So we landed on about, what, 6?
5.5 at best.
5.5 at best. So I'm just shaping it right now to make it a little bit easier when we roll it out. Yeah. Start of this like this. That's a long, goofy piece of cheese I just got there. I'm gonna hit it at an angle. This stuff grates like a dream. This guy we're gonna do.
And then this guy grates like a nightmare. It sounds like a train starting.
I'll be honest, wait till you see the reveal on this bad boy. Alright, that's gonna be plenty, I think, because of how sharp it was. That guy also grates like a dream. This is a lot of cheese. Now, this recipe is not a anabolic recipe. Whoop. I don't even see it. Oh, you're gonna eat the tea snack? All right, so this is a lot of cheese, right? We have a little bit over a cup of the grated Gruyere, and we have a little under a cup of the grated extra sharp center cut provolone. You don't even need to buy the blocks. If you can buy any of these things already sliced, that's fine. I'm just gonna drop them in. And actually to this, while we have it here, because it's gonna help mix into everything else when it melts, I'm gonna hit it with a little bit, and I mean that, maybe like a teaspoon of dried oregano. And we're gonna do maybe half a teaspoon of granulated garlic, a couple of splashes of this guy. This is just dried parsley. You don't have to use, if I'm being completely honest with you, you don't have to add any of this. And then just a little, maybe a quarter teaspoon if you guys are looking for measurements of black pepper. Nothing too crazy, just enough to let you know it's there. We're just gonna, now this is gonna help get all that cheese incorporated in, but it's also gonna help bring the temperature of this down just a little bit before we pop it in the fridge. So we're gonna want this mostly chilled or completely chilled before we add it to the tart later on. I'm gonna go down with a little bit of flour. I'm gonna rub a little bit of flour over the top of our dough, get them on the work surface, and we are just gonna start trying to push him around. Don't worry about the cracks and scraggles now, because there's gonna be way more before everything is said and done. That's fine. We're just gonna roll it out to our desired size. All we're looking for is for it to be a little bit, like half-inch longer. When we fold it over, the goal is hopefully that it'll kind of drape over the sides. We're gonna let it relax in here for like 10 or 15 minutes before we bake it. So that way it won't shrink as much when we pop it into the oven. We're also going to dock it, which means we're gonna poke it with a fork a bunch of times to create nice little holes for steam to release. The reason we do that is so that the bottom won't puff up and try to rise and expand. And to double seal that down, we're gonna add a couple of lentils over the top. In theory, one of the easier ways to drape this over is to try and get it to start rolling on the pin. So I'm gonna give it a light release. Nothing too crazy. Make sure nothing is sticking on this end before we attempt to do this. And then we're gonna just try to roll it up. Don't worry about any rips or tears that happen here. I'm gonna try to tuck it in nice and tight up against here, and we're just gonna follow it up. It's okay if it overhangs the rolling pin a bit. We just don't want to crimp. You don't want to let it rest on that side, because if it crimps there, it's just going to seal out and then you're screwed. And we're going to drop down.
That guy, just push the parchment into him. That way you already have the profile for when you put the beans in.
For this guy, what we like to do is crumple them up.
Yeah, you can do that. Oh, wow. The last one we had didn't work, is what I'm thinking.
So I'm just gonna spread it around a little bit. You don't want too much excess, because we want this to actually crisp up. But just make sure it gets into the grooves and the ridges. I wasn't expecting it to come out like that either. All right, so here, ready? We're gonna start right over here, and we're just gonna slowly unravel over the top. Pretty good for a first try, huh? Try to make it look like I've done this before. Don't worry about holes or anything in your dough now. We can patch it here. What I'm doing here is I'm lifting it towards the side to get rid of the air pocket, and then pressing it up against the outside and letting the excess drape over. This guy doesn't have so much excess, that's fine. We're just gonna keep on rocking. Same deal, lift up, push into the corner, lift up, push into the corner. Mad excess over here, hold on, wait a second. And then where you see those things down there, so you're gonna see little holes sometimes in your dough, like this guy, right? Don't stress about that. There's a couple of different easy fixes for it. Because this guy's gonna relax in the fridge, we can trim some of the excess dough. Like here, you can show them right here. I'm just gonna tear it off. So right here, I'm just gonna take a little bit from here. And I mean a little bit, so I'm gonna even rip that down more. I'm gonna take that, and with my thumb, I'm gonna lightly press it up into the corner. And that's going to remove that hole, eliminate that hole. There's one more right back over here. That's actually so small. Instead of doing that, I'm gonna pick this up from where it's overhanging, and I'm just gonna use the excess slack to fix the hole. I'm gonna let it drape back over again. Works for me, tornado knife. So, yeah, right. So we're gonna take the knife, and I'm just gonna run it along the outside here where that excess is. And you're gonna see it's gonna give us a nice clean edge.
Don't forget that thing rotates.
Oh, this thing does rotate, huh? That's why we're using it, huh?
Yeah.
So similar to before, you want to give the gluten a chance to relax. And that's what's going to happen again when we pop this guy in the fridge for a little bit. So this step is called docking. You know, roll your joke here. The definition will probably appear on the bottom, the actual definition. But all that means is we took this time to roll it out and make it nice, and we trimmed the edges, and we refrigerated it, and now we're going to ruin it by just poking a whole bunch of holes into this bottom, like we had kind of talked about earlier. We're gonna take that piece of parchment paper that we absolutely ruined earlier, gonna lay it down on the inside of this guy. You wanna make sure that it's overhanging the edges. And then we're going in with lentils. You can use dried beans, you can use rice, you can actually use loose change, like if you have a jar of change somewhere, but just make sure that you actually double down on parchment paper on the off chance it tries to rip when you remove it later. These are lentils that we bought that we just never got around to cooking.
The lentils are older than Tegan, I think.
Yeah. And the cool part about this is that you can use them to bake on something like this today. And then when you're done, just put them back into the container. You can get a couple of cycles out of it. This guy is going to bake at 425 or 400 convection for 20 to 25 minutes. And then we're gonna check on it. So let's get it there. And then to help seal it up, we're just gonna take the brush. We're just gonna get the bottom of this bad boy. You wanna drop the oven for me?
Reheat it.
Like, let's do 375. See, so it protected that. This is a little light, but that's fine. So first, you're gonna see that it holds together well. Just to give you the full tutorial, this works for everything that you would slice in this fashion. Pie, cakes, you name it. What I'm doing is instead of just trying to press through it and obliterating the crust, giving a little saw action. There's an awesome separation between the actual tart dough and then the filling. You can see the filling's not spilling out on its own. Because we've cooked it down so much, the little bit of sugar we added and the cheese is helping bind, keep everything nice and tight. And then this guy, right, because we treated it so well, we're gonna check the crust out. Don't do this the piece you plan on serving. We're just gonna give it an actual flip over and see what the undercarriage looks like. Now, he cracked a little bit probably during the slicing process, but what we really want to know is
My finger.
Alright, so we're gonna do
Hit my fingernail.
Alright, Tommy got a little too close on that one, so we're gonna. That's crispy. Let's see if we can actually salvage the piece now that we flipped it upside down. Will it go? Sheesh. That's still ready to go.
And of course, if you like what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share this video. If you try this recipe, let us know what you think. Maybe you post a picture and tag us on Instagram, I don't know. We look forward to seeing what you whip up. And from everyone here at Kenny's Cook, be good, y'all. Peace. It's all part of it. We don't show them.
Because doing dishes sucks, but it's part of what you gotta do.
What we really want to know is
My finger.